So we're back working on this Mercedes C250. Problem is left rear speed signal is missing. So I've got a new speed sensor and a new speed sensor reluctor. Now I'm looking at how to get this apart. I've already got the caliper off. It's pretty rusty. The brake rotor off. Looks like I'm going to have to undo the upper knuckle here, upper pivot, and tilt the steering or the knuckle outboard so that I can hopefully push the axle shaft in enough to disengage it from the actual wheel bearing assembly. I don't think we can unbolt the wheel bearing here conveniently like I did on a Chrysler 300. I undid the wheel, took the wheel bearing off and just took the whole bearing assembly off and was able to get at the reluctor in there. I'm still trying to remove this speed sensor inside here. It's rusted in, but I'm going to try and remove it and see if I can see inside there. I did push the axle shaft in earlier and have a look at the reluctor. I couldn't see it, so I'm not sure that that's the problem, but apparently it's common. So there's the speed sensor reluctor. It's almost exactly like a Chrysler 300. It's a magnetic reluctor impregnated or attached to the steel ring. And when I looked at this the other day, I pushed the axle shaft inboard and I didn't realize that this spot right here, I'm going to try to show you, this is the actual reluctor here, right here. I thought it was inboard further. So just checking with a screwdriver here to see if there's any magnetism on here, and there's none. When there should be, as you can see, this magnetically sticks to it. So that is definitely what's failed here. This reluctor has failed. So I'm going to remove this upper pivot, the one above it, this one over here, and try to tilt this knuckle out to the left here enough to get that CV shaft disengaged so that I can get in there and replace that reluctor. I'm not going to bother touching the speed sensor. So disconnected the 3 top pivots, 1, 2, and the third one, and I also disconnected the lower one and was able to pull the knuckle out enough to get the axle shaft out. So now we're going to split the ring off of here and then clean this up with some emery cloth or a wire wheel or something. So there's the axle shaft cleaned up, ready to press this back on. Where's the old one? Here's the old one that I took off. Just split it with a cold chisel. So now I know what to look for next time. I'll be able to spot that. I didn't actually see this reluctor was actually there. Anyways, we're gonna tap this on gently. So there's the speed sensor reluctor installed. Just tap it on gradually while you rotate the axle. Be careful not to dent it. I guess now if you wanted to change that wheel speed sensor, now would be the time. You could actually tap it out now with a punch of some kind from the back side here, but I'm going to leave that sensor alone. So that was stuck inside in front of the wheel bearing, which is the magnetic part of the speed sensor. So I'm going to clean this race out here. You can see the speed sensor. I looked in there to see it, and this piece was stuck inside here. So that's the magnetic reluctor off the tip of the wheel ring here. So now we know for next time for sure. So all these upper bolts are 50 Newton meters, 38 foot-pounds, plus 90 degrees. I got to check on this lower one because I'm sure it's more because it's a bigger bolt. This one's 258 foot-pounds. 350 Newton meters. You're supposed to technically not reuse this nut, but I Loctited it. I'm going to Loctite it and torque it and restake it. Should be fine. You also have to tighten all these fasteners on the suspension with the suspension at ride height because these are bonded bushings. So as such, the bushings twist under normal travel. If you tighten them with the suspension lowered, it'll overstress the bushings and they'll fail prematurely. So we're going to go ahead and finish reassembling this. So I'm going to clear the codes from this ABS controller. look at data. And the wheel speed sensors on the back. Left front, left rear, and right rear. So I'm going to turn the rear wheels and see if we got a speed signal. Well, that's a good sign. So it didn't need a speed sensor, it needed just the reluctor. Oh well, we'll continue to reassemble this thing.